As always, loads of correspondence on Twitter, etc. If you've got a question for Phil, and we've got loads of them stacked up, so we'll do what we can, / Ask the Handicapper. Right, let's get straight into Annie Power. Is she good enough to win what is now going to be an incredibly substandard champion hurdle? Phil, is Annie Power good enough on her current rating to win?
Well, the first problem with her is she going to be as good over 2 miles in champion hurdle conditions as she has been over, basically 2.5 miles. So that's an imponderable that nobody can answer. She's got certainly one good thing going for her, that she's going to get a £7 sex allowance, which is obviously very, very helpful. But the interesting question is, the champion hurdle, I suspect now, is going to be run at 1 million miles an hour. And
why? There's no front runners in it.
The champion hurdle will be run at 1 million miles an hour. Everything now believes it's got a chance of winning that race. They'll go off at fantastic pace. That's what happens most years anyway. Even when there's 5 or 6 runners, there'll be significantly more than 5 or 6 runners this year now. And let's see if she can cope.
But
can she win? She can win.
Well, what's her current?
Do I think she'll win? I'm not so sure.
So again, and I hate to say this again, but when she ran at Punchestown going into the race, she had a rating of 162. So has she been dropped £5 or has she been put up £2? Because that 162 doesn't take into a mare's allowance.
No, that's just her pure rating, right? And she didn't need to or didn't have to perform to that level.
So she's actually gone down.
No, she's not gone down.
Right.
She just didn't need to perform to that level, and that's often the case again, to go back to the difference between handicaps and non-handicaps. That's often the case in non-handicaps. The best horse in the race very often doesn't have to perform to its level to win the race. It happens all the time. Going back to Frankel, there were countless occasions where Frankel didn't perform he was rated 140. Certainly in his last run in the Champion Stakes, he didn't need to run to that level to win that race. And that's the case with quality horses over and over and over again. They have a rating, that's the best they've achieved, but they very often don't run to it, but they still win the race.
I'm not going to bang on this much more because I'm beginning to bore myself over it.
Good.
But can I just get this clear in my head? If she hadn't run at Punchestown last time, she would have gone into a handicap if she'd been entered for a handicap of a mark of 162, yeah?
If that's her Irish rating, yeah.
It was her rating when she ran at Punchestown.
Okay.
If she was to go into a handicap now, she would go into a handicap of a mark of 157, is that correct? So why is it 157 on the list?
Because that's the quality of her performance in that race.
Right, so it's not her rating.
Absolutely.
That's the rating for that race.
That's purely what we believe she's achieved. And those lists that you had up earlier, they're what we think those horses have achieved.
Okay, well that explains my thing. So what, if she was entered in a handicap, what rating would she be given right now?
162.
Right. So we're back as I thought, 162. So not 157, but she's run to 157.
That's what we believe she's achieved in that race.
I don't understand why you think it's so unlikely she can achieve such a good rating at 2 mile. I mean, it was 2 mile 2 at Punchestown. She made all. She destroyed the field. I mean, 2 mile 2 isn't that much further than 2 miles.
I think she's going to be asked a considerably different test than anything she's been asked so far.
Who on ratings would win the champion hurdle, just purely on their rating?
Well, probably if you have the £7 fillies allowance and she can replicate it over 2 miles, then her rating plus the sex allowance is almost certainly the highest rating.
Do you believe yourself that horses like the new one, Might Enter Yours, can come back and win a champion hurdle?
I'm not sure he can win it, but I'm sure he'll run really well.
Which one? The new one, yeah.
I'm sure he'll run really well, but whether he can win it, I wouldn't know. We're reactors, not predictors.
And as the handicapper is concerned, is the race ruined?
No, it's not ruined. It's going to be a fantastically exciting race. Yes, of course, it would be wonderful to have seen Faheen running the race. We all want to see how good he is. I mean, we were talking earlier about his rating apropos Isterbrach, and last year we had him a couple of pounds lower than Isterbrach. I want to see what this horse can actually really achieve. Let's see if we've got the best 2 mile hurdler that we've had in the last 15, 20 years. So it's frustrating from that point of view, but will it make it a more exciting race? Possibly it will.
Do you think the £7 is fair?
Oh, yeah.
Really? Because I thought you were going to change the...
Well, I mean, it's at least
mares
fair.
Wait for age allowance,
at least fair.
Well, you think mares should get more than £7?
Possibly, yeah.
Your evidence for that is?
By and large, their rating is at least £10 lower than geldings.
Right. So if Annie Power was to win this, and we've had mares, obviously Flaky Dove, Dawn Run recently, if she was to win the Champion Hurdle, would she go down as one of the great mares for you, even though it's a substandard field?
Well, I think she's already going down as a great mare because of what she's already achieved. So I don't think that she has to do anything special this year. You know, she's already shown herself to be a really high quality mare. So,
how far behind her is Vroom Vroom Mag at the moment?
Vroom Vroom Mag.
She's miles better than her rating.
I haven't got Vroom Vroom Mag on my.
You haven't even bothered to rate her.
On my radar, but she's clearly better.
She'll win the mare's hurdle if she runs in it, Phil. I should have a look at her if you've got time sometime. Paddy Timmons says, how the hell, he's almost blasphemed, he's that upset. How the hell can Irving be rated the same as the new one, or even higher than Identity Thief? It's an absolute joke. Paddy says your handicapping system's a joke.
Well, he's entitled to his opinion.
But he's right, isn't he? Irving's rating is ridiculous.
Well, in what sense is it ridiculous?
Just because he couldn't possibly run to a mark of 160.
Well, just because he hasn't performed to that level in his most recent.
So why aren't you dropping him?
Because
he's not suddenly going to bounce back, is he? He's just not as good as you want him to be.
Okay, on the 7th of November, he won a handicap at Wincanton off 154, and we had him performing to 160.
Yeah.
Right. So we know he can win a handicap off 154. Right. Now, since then, what's happened to him? He's run a decent race at Haydock when he won, but again, we didn't have him performing to 100. Well, let me finish my point.
But Philly beat Melodic Rendezvous and Zarib.
Let me finish my point.
You've been chasing.
He's won a race, right? We didn't have him performing to 160, but we're not going to drop him for winning, right? And since then, he's run 2 stinkers. Now, should we be dropping a horse when
Of course you could, because on your system you drop them when they run badly, don't you?
But hang
Give
on,
them a chance.
But this horse has already shown this season, in November, at Wincanton, that he can win off 154.
But you and I both know Irving cannot win a handicap of a mark of 160. He couldn't. It would be physically... Paul Nicholls, if he was watching this show now, he would be absolutely laughing at you, thinking he can win a handicap of 160.
Well, he's won one off 154, so he's not done too badly, has he?
Would you back Irving in a handicap mark of 160?
I'm not allowed to back Matt, so it's irrelevant.
But if you were, hypothetically, we know you're not allowed to, but if you were...
It would depend on the opposition.
Well, would you back Irving against the new one in a match off their current handicap marks?
Would I back the...
What's the new one rated?
His performance figure so far this year is 160.
So they're the same. Match, level weights, who would you back?
Okay, so there's the question. That's, again, what they've achieved so far this season. So we've already said that Irving, subsequently to that, has not performed. So 160 is probably the maximum that he can be. Do we think the 160 is the maximum the new one can be? I don't think that we would, because he's clearly been higher in the past. But that's what they've achieved so far this year. You're getting completely confused with performance figures, what they've done so far this season, and handicap marks. They're very different things.
My question, though, however confused you may feel I am, is a relatively simple one with a relatively simple answer. In a match race off level weights tomorrow, would you back Irving or the new one?
I wouldn't back either, because I don't back.
In a match race tomorrow off level weights, would you expect the new one or the Irving to beat each other?
I think the new one is more likely to win.
So you agree he's well handicapped? Against Irving.
Well handicapped.
Well, if you expect him to beat Irving, you must think...
I don't think Nigel Twiston-Davis believes the new one's the most well handicapped.
I think he does compared to Irving. Nigel, if you're watching, tell us how well handicapped you think the new one is against Irving. Level weights tomorrow. Right, Phil, you've let yourself down a bit there, but we'll move on because we could get bogged down here because you know I'm right.
But you're getting confused between performance figures and handicap ratings.
Ryan says, does Phil give reduced marks to horse running at, and I use this term purely from the point of view it's on the tweet because it's not an at the races opinion. He says to poor horses running at poor tracks like Catterick as opposed, say, to Cheltenham. I know what he's saying, inferior class tracks. If a horse is a 150 horse running at Catterick, is it also a 150 horse running at Cheltenham, would you say?
If its rating is 150, it'll run off that mark whether there's a handicap at Catterick or a handicap at Cheltenham.
But if you run poorly off at Catterick, would you be dropped quicker than if you ran poorly at Cheltenham?
No, because it's all all handicap marks I go back to. It's the relativity of horse A to horse B, and where the horses run is completely irrelevant. You know, for all we know, you could get a really high quality race at Catterick where they've attracted half a dozen really nice horses. Why should we should say, well, we're not going to just suddenly say, well, we're not going to do anything with those horses because it's only Catterick. That's just nonsense. It's the quality of the horse, not the quality of the track.
Davey Mack on Twitter just saying, did Phil Smith once work for the police force? No, but you were a school teacher, which is along the same sort of lines.
I don't understand that point.
You would if you were sat in his chair. Loads more questions, lots of them detailed ones about horses. And we'll get onto those straight. We've got to take another quick breather, but I can't wait to get onto them. We'll get onto them after this, Phil.